Hello, everybody. So good to see you all. Welcome. My name is Andy Engel, and I lead virtual public programs at Reimagine. I want to welcome you all to the second session of the three-part series, Pieces of Me. This month, we're exploring the grief we may experience due to changes in identity and when events in our lives alter our sense of self. Before we begin, for those who may not be able to see me, I want to give you a visual description. I am a white cisgender male, and I've got glasses and very short salt and pepper hair. I'm wearing a button-down patterned shirt, and I've got a bright orange wall behind me and some nice light pouring in to my right. First, a little bit about Reimagine. Reimagine is a nonprofit organization catalyzing a uniquely powerful community. People of different backgrounds, different ages, different races, various sexual orientations, gender identities, and faiths, and people of no faith. We're all coming together to heal ourselves, our communities, and the world, and we support each other in facing adversity, loss, and mortality, and we attempt to transform life's biggest challenges into action and growth. Reimagine resources, support groups, events like this one today are free or sliding scale and accessible to the public. This is made possible by the support of folks like you. So for those of you who already made a tax-deductible donation when you registered for today's program, thank you so much. Your gift will immediately support Reimagine's mission to help people of all walks of life transform the hard parts into purpose and meaning. I want to encourage you to take a look at last week's recording of the panel discussion that was moderated by grief expert Stephanie Sarrazin. That's available on our webpage for this event. The impetus for her book, Soul Broken, was her husband's betrayal and her newfound identity as someone who was divorced. Steph emphasized in this discussion that grief is grief is grief is grief. We're whole individuals made up of various pieces and experiences. Grief happens when your beloved dies, and you can have a grief experience that is just as strong as a non-death loss. It can shatter your belief system, and it can shift your sense of self. We heard a range of stories last Wednesday. Colin Perry talked about infertility and discovering that she was intersex. Rich Perez talked about leaving the pastorate, changing careers, and relocating. Jessica Guthrie talked about her family caregiver role and the challenge of being a millennial who doesn't have a peer group with others who are also caregiving for a parent. And our guests shared their losses as adoptees, as birth parents, as folks from immigrant backgrounds who are experiencing cultural bereavement. Next week, Steph, she may be here with us today. She'll be in conversation with Sarah Luria and Brenda Salgado, two spiritual leaders who design creative rituals for losses associated with identity change. And our community of collaborators host events on our platform. You can too. We've been encouraging this cohort to present programs related to our monthly themes. So please check out these additional events on identity loss and consider hosting your own program on our platform in the future. My colleague, Nicole Tan, will be pasting links in the chat for all of this. So please consider that. And finally, just a few Zoom tips. For those who wish, you can click on the CC icon at the bottom of your screen to get a live transcript of what's being said. And I hope you all use the chat, because you can also save the chat by going into the chat box window and clicking on the three dots and select save. Feel free to send me or Nicole a note in the chat if you're having any technical difficulties. We might be able to help you. And again, we are recording this program. So everyone who has registered for this workshop will get a follow-up email with a link to that recording. And now, before we begin, a few words about my colleague, Sundari Malcolm. Sundari Malcolm is a native New Yorker, born to yogi parents and raised with the teachings of indigenous healers. In 2007, at the age of 27, after 7 years of being her caregiver, Sundari lost her mother to breast cancer. 4 years later, she lost her father to brain cancer. And since then, Sundari has made it her mission to equip people with the tools they need to manage life's transitions. Sundari is a birth, grief, and death doula. She sits as the BIPOC grief educator and care curator for The Dinner Party, a great organization you should learn about. She is the founder of A Healing Doula, and we'll paste a link in the chat about that, and the author of the book Grief Gems. And she's a frequent Reimagine presenter, a beloved Reimagine presenter. This workshop will be roughly 70 minutes long. Please give a warm welcome to Sundari Malcolm.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you to Reimagine. Before we do anything, let's breathe together. So you have the option here to turn your camera off or face away from your computer. Get a little bit more comfortable in your seat. Soften your feet and your legs. Soften your hips and your butt. Your arms, your hands, and your fingertips. On your exhale, soften your back, your belly, the space around your heart. Soften the muscles of your face. Imagine that you can soften even the crown of your head. You can close your eyes here if you're more comfortable and you prefer. You can continue to gaze, perhaps at a spot in your space, but become aware of your breathing here. See if you can slow it down. If it feels good for you today, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Choosing to let go of the heavy energy, perhaps, that you came in with, and just for this moment only, choosing to focus only on your breath. Imagining that each exhale is clearing and cleansing and making space for you to sit in community today. Now see if you can breathe in and out only through the nose. And can you hear yourself breathe? Taking 3 more breaths this way. And at the end of that third exhale, just sitting for a moment, knowing that you are surrounded by community. You are sitting in the right place. Give your toes a little wiggle. Give your fingers a little wiggle. If you'd like to twist gently in your seat from side to side, open up your spine, your back, your shoulders, stretch your arms if it feels good. And when you're ready, you can come back to the camera, back to your computer. And let's begin. Thank you. So my name is Sundari Malcolm, and welcome to Sitting in Ceremony with Ourselves. If you were able to join the first session, we had a beautiful opening to this series, and I'm so grateful to Reimagine and Steph and Cole and Rich and Jessica for sharing and speaking so beautifully to the many ways that grief shifts us. As Andy mentioned, I'm a birth, grief, and death doula. I've lost my parents. I've experienced miscarriage. I also left a toxic marriage. I left a toxic America. And I know intimately what it means to need to recover and reclaim oneself after loss. And so today I want to offer you a few practices that I know can assist you as you discover, rediscover perhaps, who you are now. So we're going to talk, we're going to breathe, we're going to move really gently if you'd like to, and we're going to sit in ceremony today. But first, I'm going to share a few slides, and you can let me know if you're able to see them. Okay. Can everyone see these? I'm assuming, yes. Okay. So where grief lives, traditional Chinese medicine tells us that grief sits in the lungs and small intestine. Ancient Egyptian texts teach that trauma sits in your root chakra between your hips. So twerking, fun fact, is actually the modern version of an ancient dance called mapuka that originated on the Ivory Coast in West Africa. And the dance is rooted in the knowledge that by shaking your hips, you assisted in bringing balance to your emotional body. Grief triggers the release of the hormone cortisol, and it keeps it at chronic levels when left unmanaged. So cortisol is a hormone produced in your body by the adrenal glands, and it regulates several mechanisms by acting as a messenger between different organs. Cortisol is what's responsible for your body's fight or flight response when stressed. So when it thinks it's keeping you protected, it stops doing the following: blood sugar regulation, inflammation reduction, metabolism regulation, memory formulation. So what we know is that grief is hard on the body. But knowing this means that you have control over something. You did not have control over what made you a griever, but you do have control over how that grief impacts your body and your life and your energy field moving forward. So when you focus on your lungs and your root chakra, you're taking a beautiful step towards working with your grief instead of fighting against it. I say this often: grief will drown you if you let it. And so the purpose of this workshop today is to learn how to navigate and swim through it. Let me share a breath. Okay. Intentional breathing is a way of sitting in ceremony with yourself. By doing so, you're making the decision and announcing to the universe that you are ready to slow down, that you're ready to tune out the outside noise, to focus on you, to spend time with you. You are deciding that you are going to sit at the altar of yourself. In Sanskrit, an ancient Indian language, the breath is known as prana, or life force energy. In Balinese, vayu, or life force energy. The Kemetic term, so Kemet is the term for ancient Egypt. So the Kemetic term for the practice of yoga is Samai Tawi, which means joining the lands of Upper Kemet and Lower Kemet. And how they represented this was with depictions of the gods Heru and Sebek, and they were tying ropes around the symbol. And the symbol depicted spine and lungs. And what it was teaching us was that if you use the breath, it can become the life force opener of the energetic centers along the spine and brain that enlighten human consciousness. So do we see a theme here? Ancient cultures have always known about the power of one's breath, about the ability to, among many other things, restore the energy of life. We grieve because something has died, a human being, a beloved pet, a career, faith, our connection to community, a home we loved. Yes, the slides will be available. I see your question. A home we loved, a beautiful friendship, the possibility of something, and almost 100%, it's the death of a version of ourselves. Right? So it's important to equip yourself with tools and practices and rituals that can be adapted to meet you where you are now, and then also travel with you as you continue to expand. So we're going to practice 3 different breathing techniques, 1 root chakra balancing activity, and we'll end with an ask for our ancestors. Because sometimes as grievers, we feel anxious. Sometimes we feel scared or fearful. Sometimes we feel lost. And these practices are here to address these very real and valid feelings. So are we ready to start with our first breath? Dirga Swasam breath, the 3-part breath. So let's start by thinking of the torso as 3 separate areas: belly, rib cage, heart space. And sorry if I'm clicking the microphone. So I'd like you to put your hands on your belly, feet on the floor, flat if possible. If they're crossed, try to uncross them. You want to be a clear channel for this prana, this life force to move. And we're going to start by just focusing on the belly. So normally as we breathe, we're all chest breathers. So we tend to breathe in, the chest gets big and goes down, right? The belly and the rib cage are usually not involved. So what happens when you are a chest breather? You're not accessing a full breath, and it winds up causing anxiety. Just shallow breathing, right? It's why as a birth doula, the Lamaze breathing, terrible. Never teach a woman that, right? That's actually making her more anxious and her body to contract and restrict. Whereas a deep breath is grounding you. So hands on your belly. You can choose to close your eyes again. You can choose to face away from your camera. Focus on a place in your room. But only the belly is going to move. And this will be the opposite of how you normally breathe. So it might feel a little weird. Just give yourself some grace. On the inhale, your belly should get big. It should push into your hands. On the exhale, the belly comes back to the spine. So let's just spend a few moments just with that breath. Hands on the belly. Inhale and allow the belly to become bigger. Exhale and release the belly. Then let's take a few moments with that breath. Inhale and expand. Exhale and release. Take one more breath here. And then leave one hand on your belly and slide one hand to your rib cage. So you can look at the screen if you need to see, but you're just gonna hold your rib cage with one hand. So now as the inhale fills the belly, it also is going to move up into the second hand. And so your rib cage should push outwards. The exhale should begin in the rib cage, and then the belly comes back towards the spine. So you are filling from the bottom, emptying from the top. Let's spend a few moments with this two-part breath. Taking one more breath this way. And now the full expression of the breath. So one hand stays on the belly and let one hand rest over your heart. And now the breath will fill the belly. It'll push the rib cage out to each side. And then your heart space is the last space to receive breath. On the exhale, let your heart soften first, then your rib cage, then your belly. And let's stay with this breath. It's allowing the entire torso to fill with prana. And it allows you, the entire torso, to clear and cleanse what needs to be moved or moved out. Enjoy 3 more breaths here. After the third exhale, just sitting for a moment, one hand on belly, one hand on heart. Noticing the movement under each hand. And then when you're ready, you can relax your arms and your hands and come back to your screen. Dirga Swasam breath. This is the 3-part breath. This is an excellent breath to use when you feel like you are untethered in your grief. You are feeling like you are floating off into the abyss. You are completely ungrounded. You are feeling fragmented in the mind in your loss. This helps to usher in balance. It helps to ground you. Not all breath work is the same, which is why we're going to learn different breaths. The next breath we're going to use is for courage. This one is to steady ourselves. Would anyone like to share what came up for them in the chat while practicing or after practicing? I'll give us a couple of minutes for that. I know for myself, I always feel much calmer after a few of those. I spend the first few moments feeling anxious because I'm not breathing correctly, right? Because I'm like, oh, I skipped the second part. Oops, I'm all the way up at the heart space. And then after a while, I settle. It was hard for me to distinguish between heart and rib cage. Yeah, I've never seen the difference between heart and ribcage and felt so much more opened up, lighter and settled, overthinking it, but feel more present. And that's what happens, right? When you start, you're like trying to be good at it. So you're trying to like feel exactly the three separate parts, but really you're just opening up your body. Starts off shaky and then leads to calmness. That is what is waiting for you with that breath. It allows you to drop back in. Does it matter to breathe through the mouth versus the nose? I prefer breathing in through the nose and either out through the nose or out through the mouth. But it's also like, if your nose is stuffed up, do what you got to do. You know, breathe whichever way feels comfortable. But ideally, the nose is what keeps things internal, right? The mouth kind of releases energy. So for this breath, when I'm wanting to get grounded and balanced, nose, keep it insular, calming, and eventually like a sea sponge. I started remembering what I used to feel like as a very happy, active student, the presence with my body. This will excavate this breath, right? Because we don't usually take this sort of time with our breath. We are mindless breathers, right? We're just expecting that the body will do its job. But there is something waiting for you when you are intentional about your inhale and exhale. Okay, so you can keep using the chat, and we are going to learn another breath. So how long could you do this for? Honestly, I practice breath work 3 times a day, and I probably practice that breath for 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Eventually I stopped doing the 3 parts, or I stopped paying attention to the 3 parts because now my body has opened up enough, right? But if I am having a particularly fragile moment or an anxious moment, I will sit there and do this as long as I need to. You can't like knock yourself out with breath work. You might get a little dizzy. The next one, there is a contraindication in how long we do it. But for this one, you're just breathing. Do it until your arms get tired from holding the heart in the belly. But at least do this for 5 minutes. So the next breath is called Kapalabhati, or fire breathing. And this one is used when you need courage. When you are feeling like you need to get a little more pep back in your step, like you need to reclaim and remember the bad, I was almost going to say the bad bitch, but the bad chick you used to be, right? The bad dude you used to be, the person that felt like they were walking through this world, knowing what they were doing. When you feel like you need to find some of that again, this is the breath I use. It's called fire breath because it really does heat up the body. If you are menstruating right now, don't practice because you don't want to generate this much heat within the uterus. If you are feeling particularly dizzy already, don't practice. You can just watch and learn. And we're only going to do a few moments of this. So I want you to put your hands on your belly again, because this is again going to require you to do some thinking. So take a normal breath in and out, just through the nose. So you saw when you breathe out, I'm going to stand up a second. My belly kind of comes in, right? With this breath, my belly's going to suck in really, really, really fast. So how does it do that? Your inhale happens passively and your exhale is what you're focusing on. So I take a deep breath in. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me do that? Breathe. Val, I see your face. Maggie, I see your face. Can you hear me breathe when I do that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, you two are the 2 I can see. So that is going to be what you're doing. You're not focusing on the inhale. That's where people trip up. Just take a deep breath in. Focus, get a tissue near you if you feel like your nose is a little stuffed up. But what you're going to do is literally just your belly is snapping in. Let's just try it, right? There's no getting this wrong. So just play with your breath for a few moments. Put your hands on your belly, sit up tall, feet on the floor. This is a courage breath. Take a deep breath in first. And then if that feels too fast, slow it down. Breathe in and you can speed up as much as you're comfortable. But I'm going to leave you with that for a few moments. Don't worry about looking silly. Yes, that's on the exhale. I take a deep breath in, and it's every time the belly snaps in is when I am breathing out through the nose. You don't have to focus on your inhale. It will happen automatically. Just focus on, like you're blowing something out of your nose. Can this be done on an angle sitting position? I prefer to sit up straight, but sure. If that's where your body is comfortable right now, I wouldn't do it laying down. But as long as your breath can travel along your spine. Let's just try it, folks. Hands on belly, deep breath in. Once you practice for a few moments, blow out through the nose. Take a breath for a moment, and then we'll practice again together. So if you haven't taken a break yet, this is your break. Notice how that just felt in your body. You might feel lightheaded. You might feel like there's a lot of energy pulsing through you. We're going to do that one more time. Hands on belly. Belly in on out. Yes, belly in on out breath. Imagine that you are blowing like a tissue that's in front of you, away from you with your nose. That's all you're focusing on. Take a deep breath in. No, you don't have to worry about eating. Check in with yourself. And then let's come into the chat. So what I noticed about that breath, and I noticed this, I've been teaching this breath now since 2008, and it's always the same response. People feel silly. Adults feel silly with this breath, and it prevents you from enjoying the benefits of it. People feel like they don't usually blow out their nose like that, right? We are taught not to, but that is what it's asking of you. And so it requires you to get a little bit silly with yourself, right? To allow yourself to feel like, I don't know what I'm doing. Good, I feel more alert. I can see why it's meant for courage. Yes, it will wake you up. So this is what ancient monks used to use in place of caffeine, honestly. This is what a lot of yogis, a lot of spiritual communities use in place of caffeine stimulants, is Kapalabhati breath. Yes, you feel a focus on energy around the nose area. Good for sinus allergies. Yes, if you're someone who does like neti pots and likes to clear, this will clear for you. It clears the whole sinus passage. It generates a lot of heat in the body, so great when it's cold outside, right? Great for when you're feeling internally cold. But when it comes to grief, this is when I need some courage. I need to wake back. Yes, you feel like you want to cry, you feel it coming. So what happens with these breaths, right, is it starts to wake up stagnant energy. What if it feels too activating because it stirs up sexual trauma? So this is why you want to pay attention to grief practices, right? It's why I say learn every single one and learn what works for you and which one doesn't. There is no every breath practice works perfectly for everybody. What this breath practice will do is it will excavate So if there are things that you have been ignoring, if there are things that have been left sitting that you have not been paying attention to, each one of these breath practices will begin to stir things up. And that is why we use them. Because what did we just learn? That when we don't pay attention to where grief is sitting in the body, when we don't address, when we don't work to manage it and work with it, it affects our organs. It affects our life. It affects our health. So this is what I call passive way. I don't know that passive is really the right word, but when I am not feeling like I want to talk about it or write about it, or I feel like I'm not ready to be in the world with it, but I know that that grief is like sitting right behind my eyes, right? Or it's sitting right in my heart space. I can feel it in my body. Breath work is a way to shift things. It's something you have control over. Okay. So now let's move some of that energy around. We're going to do some brief movement, but I sent out a list to Reimagine that had a few items. I sent it late, by the way, so it's possible you don't have it, but I'm going to give you some time. It had a few items for you to bring with you today. You probably have all of these right where you are. It's for our ancestral practice. So I'm going to play some music and give you a few moments to look for these in case you don't have them near you now. And if you're not able to grab them, don't worry about it. I'm going to put the items in the chat, but just to read them out loud, you need a pen, a piece of paper, candle, a glass of water, and another small bowl with water in it. Okay. I'm going to put this into the chat. Or Nicole, are you able to while I play music? So a pen, a paper, candle, glass of water, small bowl of water. This is what I have, just small. You just need a little water in it. Okay, I'm going to give us 3 minutes. You are not drinking the water. No. You won't be drinking any of the water, babies. Okay, so you have 3 minutes. And then when you come back, we're going to move. Yes, you can do incense instead of a candle. And if you don't have a candle, don't worry about it. I'm going to light mine and you can see it. Don't stress about this. Get what you can. The pen and the paper is the most important. The rest is just to add to your ceremony. 2 more minutes. If you already have your items, then this is the time to dim it, to make yourself comfortable in your seat. Okay. Is everyone back? Yes, I will send the link for Spotify to Andy, and I'm also going to send him these slides. I made these slides for you guys, so he can send, Reimagine can send them out if they're able to. No problem. I love that playlist. Okay, are we all back? So you have your items near you, but we're not going to use them right now. It was just good to get set up right now. Can everyone hear me? I guess Nicole or Andy will let me know.
You're good. You're good.
Okay. So while the body is still hot and has some extra energy, let's talk about the root chakra. So it's often taught that the earliest written record of chakras comes from the Vedas, which are ancient Indian texts that describe the philosophy of yoga. However, there are images and artifacts that span from the ancient Olmecs of Mexico to the temple walls of Egypt that show even earlier depictions of figures practicing yoga. And we know by reading their texts that they practiced in order to unblock energetic centers to allow all of the energy to reach your pineal gland between your eyebrows, which it is believed that it is the seat of consciousness. Scientific research tells us that humans are electromagnetic beings with communication and information that flows throughout the body, and it affects our health, and it could even affect other people. So basically, we're all saying the same thing, right? The energy in your body moves. It affects you, and it affects what's around you. Blocked chakras mean imbalances in the body and in the life around you. Your root chakra is linked to security, stability, and feeling rooted. When the root chakra is blocked, it presents itself as increased distractibility, right? Feeling exhausted and lethargic all the time, feeling stuck in your life, the inability to take action to move forward, rushing from one task to another, fight or flight. So how do we work on this? Well, one way is to move your hips. And we're going to do some very gentle movement right now. So there are two ways to do this. We're going to do lunges, very gentle yogic lunge. You can either do it seated, and I will show you how, or you're going to come to the floor and do it that way. So if you're coming to the floor, I want you to come to hands and knees. We're not going to be here long. You don't need to set up a yoga mat or anything. But if you want to put something under your knee, you can. But you're coming to hands and knees, and you're going to step the right foot forward in a lunge. The left knee is still down. Imagine that you were like running a race. Put your hands on the inside of the right foot. So the right leg is bent in a lunge, the left leg is stretched all the way back. If you would prefer to do this seated, sit down, and instead of crossing your legs one knee over the other, cross at the ankle so that you're making like a box or half a box with your leg, right? And then see if you can bend forward to reach towards the floor in front of you. If you are in the lunge, you are letting your head go and your eyes close if you're comfortable. Wherever you are focusing on your breathing. Imagine that you can breathe into the hips, that every exhale softens the hips. Take 3 breaths here. At the end of the third breath, we're going to switch sides. So if you're on the floor, the right knee comes back underneath you, the left foot comes forward, lunging on the other side. If you're seated, you're uncrossing your legs. Left leg, the ankle is what's on top of the right leg. The left knee is out towards the left, right? You're making that same half box. Either way, if you're seated, you're folding over. And if you're on the floor, you're letting your head go. Oftentimes when we do hip work, emotions begin to float up. That's what it's supposed to do. And I urge you to be the witness here and to just flow with your breath. You can breathe from the belly, breathe from where it feels good. Focus on the hips, just take big breaths. Take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, slowly come out of the lunge or across your leg and return to your seat. If you do not already practice hip openers, I suggest practicing them and creating a ritual for it. Another one can be to sit down with the soles of your feet together and your knees open like butterfly wings. Another one can be just to sit and allow the legs to be open and just to fold forward as much as you're able to. But each evening before bed, lunge and breathe. Open your hips. Remember the skeleton twerking, dance if that feels like the energy you need. But allow that root chakra to become more balanced. Another thing that I like to practice when it comes to the root chakra are affirmations. Each chakra has a name. Each chakra has a sound. Each one has an affirmation that helps bring balance to it. And you can Google these. You can Google like affirmations for my solar plexus, affirmations for my third eye. You can find all of them. But let's do one for the root, because what I have found in grief, in the anxiety, in the untethering, in the ungroundedness, is that the cure for it, if there was one, is not just to be calm, it's to trust. I have found that the absence of anxiety is trust. And so when dealing with grief and a loss of self and a loss of place in the world, you're going to need to program yourself to trust yourself again, to trust the world around you again. So let's practice this together. Hands on belly. Eyes closed only if you'd like to. And you're going to repeat this out loud if where you are allows that. Otherwise, repeat this mentally. I like to say this aloud. We're going to practice this 3 times. You can repeat after me. I trust the journey of my life. I trust the journey of my life. I trust the journey of my life. Take a deep breath in and out, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then release. You can create a ritual for this too. So before bed, you are lunging or dancing, you're opening up your hips, and then repeat your mantra. Repeat your affirmation. And if this one didn't resonate for you, Google them and find which one does, or make up your own. And repeat this to yourself 3 times out loud before you go to sleep. Reprogram your subconscious to trust again. Would anyone like to share in the chat what came up for them after hip opening, after affirmation? I'll tell you, I usually cry in hip work. Okay. Definitely feel the need to fall. Yep. I saw the face of the person I feel in the way of my progress. I cried as well. I sob whenever I do hip work. I'm working on being more trusting, so this resonated with me. I recognized a deep fatigue. Hip work was hard, like my body was resisting, working too hard. There's so much waiting for us in our bodies when we begin to pay attention, huh? Feeling a little bit lighter. No longer, I've had a brain tumor, no longer trust myself because of after effects. Yes. Regaining trust in ourselves takes practice and grace. Takes grace. You're not supposed to just snap back into it. Let's try one more breathing practice. So for me, and you can continue to use the chat and I will come back to it. What I know is that when grief arrives, a version of you disappears. And it is natural to want to return and even to spend time waiting for that version to show back up. But flowing with grief requires a really deep surrender. And part of that surrender is to the awareness that you are not the same. And that maybe you need to spend some time getting to know who you are now and what you need. And it is vitally important to ask your soul questions, to learn to listen for what she needs, for what he needs, for what they need. This takes true stillness. We're going to move from this breath practice right into our ceremony. So if your lights if your lights aren't dim yet, this would be the time. Alternate nostril breathing. This is one of my favorites. And this will require having to learn some hand work, but we're not going to stress about this, right? We're just going to learn how to do something new and we can adapt it to ourselves later. So I want you to look at my hand. So I do this, my fingers are kind of funny. You can just do the pinky and the thumb, like aloha. Some people do the last 2 fingers and the thumb, but I have trouble keeping my fingers together, these last 2, which is why I do pinky and thumb. And basically what you're doing is exactly what it says, alternate nostril breathing, because you're going to be closing one and breathing out the other and going back and forth. I'm going to talk you through it the entire time, but I'll give you a couple little tips. 1, be gentle with yourself. We're not smashing our nose back and forth. It's like a very gentle close, the other one opens, close. You're just blocking one and breathing through the other.
Sundari, before we
yes,
there's a request to go full screen without the slide sharing.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Okay. Is this better?
You look good. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's look at the hands. Again, so it can be 1 and 2. The traditional way is 2 and 1. I just can't keep my fingers like this. So I go like this. We're not smashing the nose. So bring your hand up and I'm going to talk you through it. You're going to put your hand right in front of your nose. Take a deep breath in. Close your right nostril. Exhale through your left. Inhale through your left. Close your left nostril with your pinky as you exhale through your right. Inhale through your right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close. Exhale left. Inhale. Close. Exhale. Inhale. Close. Exhale. Inhale. Close. Exhale. Inhale. Close. Exhale to the left. Return your hands to your lap and sit for a few moments in silence. When you're feeling like you need answers and direction, I suggest calling on our ancestors. Some say, well, I don't know mine. And my answer to you is, you don't need them to. You don't need to. They know you. And there's some in your line, in your bloodline, that are perfect to call on when you need help or direction or healing. In front of me, and perhaps you also, I have my pen and my paper. I've lit my candle. I have a glass of water and a small bowl with water. I also have a crystal. I love crystals. I'm going to start by ringing my bell. I always ring a bell to begin a ceremony as a way of clearing the energy, letting the ancestors know that I am here and that I would like assistance. We always clean our hands of old energy before touching items for ceremonies. So dip your fingers lightly in your small bowl of water. And you're just going to gently wipe them up. Wipe the arms. If you want to bring some water to the back of your neck or your chest, you can. I did not also bring a paper towel, so I will be just wiping them on something else. Lighting your candle, your incense, if you have not already. Spending a few moments with your Dirga Swasam breath. That was our 3-part breath. You don't need to use your hands if you don't want to. But imagine inhaling into your belly, your rib cage, and your heart. Perhaps you're watching your candle flame or mine as you do so. Inhaling and exhaling. Breathing slowly. And while watching your flame or mind, begin to think about what area in your life needs the most support. Where do you need guidance? Where could you use some clarity or some focus? And now begin to think about your ancestors, those you knew, those you did not. The bloodline that you hail from. Please remember that there are dark and light in all lineages. There is no judgment here. Today, we're asking for those who are here for our highest good. Now reach for your pen and paper. And we're going to begin to write our needs as clearly as you're able to. So what can this look like? I need help finding a new job. I need help quitting drinking. I need help finding a new community to become a part of. I need help with my divorce. I want you to write clearly. There are no limitations on what you can ask for. They are here to help you. We'll take a few moments here, just writing. You will not be reading these aloud or sharing them with anyone, so please write all of the things that you desire and need help with. Be honest with yourself, honest with your ancestors. Let's take just one more minute here. And I know we have lots and lots of things to write, but this is a ritual that you can bring into your own home, your own life on your own, if you'd like to. Few more minutes or a few more seconds. And finishing up your sentence, you're going to pick up your piece of paper. We're going to fold it towards ourselves because we are asking to receive and we are open to receiving. So bring it towards you. And you can fold it again if you'd like, towards you. And holding this in your hand, I want you to repeat to yourself mentally or out loud, ancestors, I am ready to receive your help. Ancestors, I am ready to receive your help. Ancestors, I am ready to receive your help. And now we're going to take that piece of paper, and with our glass of water that we did not dip our fingers into, we place the paper inside, because we know that water holds memory. And water is the element that we are most connected to, as we're mostly composed of water. So watch as this water dissolves your words, as you know that this element is taking your ask out into the cosmos. As we move into a brief meditation, you can continue to stare at your candle flame or close your eyes. You can practice either the Dirga Swasam breath, the 3-part breath, or your alternate nostril breathing, if that felt good for you. But let's sit together in silence for a few moments. I'm going to end with 3 ohms. And if you'd like, you can join me wherever you are. Taking a deep breath in. Om. 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 Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you'd like to use the chat to share with the group what's come up for you with our ceremony or with your breath, please feel free. But I'll leave you just with a message that what I hope after our time together today is that you realize the importance and the power that you hold as you look to reaffirm your identities and place in this world. Thank you so much. I'll be leaving ways to stay in touch with me and a discount for everyone who came here to something on my website, and perhaps Reimagine can send that out to you as well. But thank you.
Thank you, Sundari. That was so beautiful. I especially love that final ritual of dissolving the paper in water. I want to thank all of you for joining us as well. Please come to our final session in this series. I just want to thank all of you who've already donated to Reimagine. You can still support Reimagine's efforts to provide this type of accessible sliding scale programming. And also, I want you to fill out a survey that Nicole will paste in the chat. It really helps to get feedback on what you liked, what you think needs improvement. It's just a way for us to get to know you better also. So please fill out that survey. I want to encourage you, yes, to join the final session of this series next Wednesday. We'll be taking action. So we've gone through this process of learning the first session, more of an embodied experience with Sundari today. And now for the third session, we're taking small, sweet steps towards transforming identity loss. So please join us for that. We'll follow up with links to Sundari, the recording. Anything else? Any last words from you, Sundari?
No, I hope you all rest. We did a lot of energy movement today, so please hydrate yourselves. Drink a lot of water today. You might find some residual bubble up throughout your day. Be gentle with yourself. Rest. Okay.
Thank you all. Hope to see you next Wednesday. Take good care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.